Hi, this is Jennifer Coluciello, and I'm going to start with doing the attestation. So all Aspen University students are required to abide by Aspen University's academic integrity policy as outlined in the university catalog. The academic integrity policy is built upon the concepts of honesty, truth, fairness, respect, and responsibility. By taking this assessment, I agree to abide by both the academic integrity policy and the rules outlined in this assessment. With this recording, I am attesting that I have personally committed the proctored assessment and that the information I submit is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge. And here is my driver's license. Excellent. So with that done, I'm going to go ahead and jump into today's presentation. This is simply a review of Sheila's journey from therapy to subpoena. So this is a tough situation, and unfortunately not all uncommon. So this is really poignant to healthcare today. Basic summary of the situation. Approximately 8 months ago, Sheila decided to attempt seeking help through therapy sessions to try to save her marriage. She attended several sessions herself. She was unable to convince her husband, Roy, to do so as well, and he actually refused to participate in this process. Throughout the next several months, things continued to escalate, and about 3 months ago, the marriage broke up. Roy and Sheila experienced a very nasty breakup, and subsequent issues have arose, and the attorney for Roy has recently sent a subpoena to me as the therapist in this case for all records involved with Sheila's sessions. There are some concerns with releasing these records, and these have been discussed with Sheila, but she wishes to comply with the subpoena fully, stating that she has nothing to hide. There are several things to consider in this situation, many of them ethical, some legal, but there are a lot of ethical items here in releasing these records. So first, we do have an ethical responsibility to meet the HIPAA regulations. This is something that we attest as a provider in any form in healthcare that we're going to follow. This is a federal regulation, and there are state regulations, and we have an ethical obligation to respect those regulations from a fiduciary standpoint as well as from the patient's privacy. We are tasked with maintaining the integrity of the patient's record, and this is even outlined in the APA code. We should be protecting the patient's privacy and acting in their best interests. We also need to respect and follow the professional licensing laws. This is something that we agree to do, and so must do that. The APA actually goes so far in their ethics code to have specific standards around this information and about releasing records and maintaining the privacy and integrity of the patient documents. This is in 9.04 and 9.11. We also have an ethical obligation to comply with the legal order for disclosure, or we potentially run some big penalties. Another issue here to consider is that from Sheila's side, if we turn over these records in totality, as she is recommending that we do, and it backfires on her, there's a potential for her loss of trust in the healthcare system, specifically from a mental health care perspective. And so these are things we have an ethical obligation to consider, especially since we are supposed to act in the patient's best manner and be their advocate. So some specific disadvantages for Sheila here include emotional, legal, and interpersonal items. Emotionally, she's going to potentially lose the trust in that safe place, privacy. One of the caveats that comes to psychotherapy notes is that they are actually held in strict confidence. They're actually treated a little bit more confidently and private than general medical notes. So this is a key thing. And if that backfires on her, if release of these items actually creates an issue, she could lose that trust. This may actually lead her to avoid needed treatment in the future, which could have catastrophic effects. Legally, there are things that are said at in emotional responses, and when you're letting those emotions out in that safe place of therapy. And those statements that are made in anger, out of emotion, they could be artificially escalated. They can be taken out of context, And this can actually affect the outcome of the divorce settlement, both from a financial and a child custody perspective. So this could have some pretty substantial impact on the outcome. There are also some other interpersonal items that need to be considered. If these are not closed sessions, if they are open to family and friends, there may be other people involved, and things that they hear may actually upset them. And she could also lose other support systems that are already in place. So there are some pretty big disadvantages here for Sheila in just releasing all of those records, because as she said, she has nothing to hide. And while she may not have done anything wrong or said anything wrong or even be malintended in any of her statements, they could have some pretty negative effects for her. When it comes to the response, there's a couple different things that have to happen. The first and best thing to do would be to discuss this with the patient and her attorney. So to decide at that point with the attorney what is being requested, what's under privilege, and if the charges and the requests are appropriate or not. We need to look at from what is being requested. Is it just demographics? Is it billing? Is it verification that she was in fact there or not? Or are they looking for the psychotherapy notes or even an opinion statement? These are some pretty big things to take into consideration here. Whatever that discussion is and whatever determination is made, a response does need to be made in a timely fashion. So this could be responding with items that can be sent, appointment and billing records. It could include grounds for opposing or limiting client record submissions and responses. It could also be actually potential filings of motions to quash this request or of a protective order to keep them closed and let the receiving lawyer, attorney, or arbitrator or judge even actually make that decision about what needs to be released and what doesn't. So there's a lot of steps to consider here before doing this response. This is quite a unique situation, right? We have a legal responsibility. We have a responsibility to the patient, and that is quite a distinct balance. Who comes first? Are we more important than the client, or is the client more important? We go into healthcare not necessarily for the money, but we go into it, while it's nice to make a good living, we go in to help people. That's the primary reason people get involved in healthcare, whatever field that it may be. And this situation puts us at a tenuous balance and choice to make regarding where does that fine line fall between looking out for the client themselves from a trust and privacy perspective versus also making sure that I am protected and not violating any of the laws and regulations and the agreements that I have made. The main 2 points come up here as to protecting the patient and then complying with those legal processes. That is really the crux of the situation. And this is a very, very difficult one to make at some points. This is where we start getting into some other potential resources that we could use. So a couple other perspectives are, one, we could comply with everything right off the bat. Sheila did give consent, so that is something to keep in mind. We could also comply with nothing. Obviously in medicine, we typically don't say always, and we typically don't say never, and it's not typically all or none. But there are some concerns here, and so this is not a black and white issue. But there are potential consequences to not complying with these items. We could be held in contempt of court. There could be monetary penalties or even jail time associated with that. We could have HIPAA and Office of Civil Rights violations with associated penalties. We could get a poor review from this client, which could then lend to bad word of mouth on physician rating programs and so forth, which could actually lead to a loss of clients and a loss of business for the therapists themselves. This is really where it comes into a personal decision. I can tell you for myself personally, I would probably be contacting my own lawyer for the company. After speaking with the patient, Sheila, and her attorney, I would then talk with my attorney and find out what is the best item to do here? What's the best method? I need to be able to show that I'm attempting to comply, but I'm making a good faith effort to do so, but I'm also trying to do the right thing by my patient. I think I would look for legal guidance to do that, given the fact that this is in a legal setting. On my own understanding for confidentiality and how this works, I can say, since I am currently a certified HIPAA privacy officer and a compliance and ethics certified professional through the American Institute of Healthcare Compliance and Open Compliance and Ethics Group. Having many of those certifications actually puts me in a really good position. I am familiar with many of these concepts and regulations and the requirements therein. This is definitely a tenuous one, and because of the fact that there is a subpoena on hand and some of the information in the psychotherapy notes would be detrimental to my patient, I believe I would actually seek my own counsel with my legal attorney and actually make that determination with his or her help to determine the best approach, but still making a good faith effort to do the right thing for both my patient and myself and my licensing. Here are several references that I used for that purpose, and thank you.